Hello, and we're live from C++ Live with Meeting C++ Live, and two special guests. First episode was two guests, John Kalb, Michael Caisse. Short introduction.
I'm John Kalb. I am the conference chair for C++ now, and I'm very happy to be here. And I just wish you'd had a better co-host for me to be here with.
And I'm Michael Caisse, and really, actually, despite John's opinions about many things, we're still pretty good friends, I think.
Yeah, I just have to say that I don't like the bashing on other people which you do frequently. But I'm very happy with my co-host, with both of them.
We should say that we were doing the dueling.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We are going to come back to that topic later because modern C++ is a very popular topic here at the conference. But just for the start, we think we're going to just have a look at some pictures from the conference, that you have a feeling what meeting C++.
learn from their individual languages. And so they were all experts in their own languages, and all. Now, one of the things I will say is, after we announced these keynotes, I did get, people saying to me, "How come you're de-emphasizing C++?" And it's like,
Now with sound. So yeah,
Take two.
yeah. I think so. Come on, don't freeze on me. Okay, frozen. I'm not sure if it's still streaming or not. The program isn't reacting. Switch to here.
All right, we may no longer be live. This may be the
No, we're
unlive.
live. We're still live.
Oh no, we're still live. Okay, even better. So
Right. We have to kill the program.
and now we're leaving.
Yeah. I don't even know if we have sound. Okay. We're back. We had a little audio issue, and I think now we have sound. Yeah, this live stream is so much better with sound. So we were bragging a bit about the conference, and the last thing we were on was the keynotes, and I think we continue with that, and then we chat a bit about Aspen, as we did. So John?
Yeah, the theme for our keynotes this year was we had 3 keynotes. Each one was an expert in a different language talking to us specifically about that language. We had a speaker on Rust and Haskell and D. And at least a couple of them, I think, were very knowledgeable about C++. And so that they weren't just, here's an introduction to this language. It was what C++ programmers should know about and possibly can learn from these other languages. And after we announced these keynotes, I was kind of, some people said, why are you de-emphasizing C++? And I think they kind of got the wrong impression that we somehow are thinking C++ isn't what we're committed to. That obviously, we are committed to C++. But C++ is a very practical language, and we improve the language by looking at the world around us and saying, how is technology changing? What are other people doing in other languages? What can we learn from them? How can we improve? You want to talk about what your favorite, or any comments on which?
Well, I think I was really excited when the announcement came out of what the theme was going to be for, and so at that point, the actual people hadn't been announced or whatnot, but just the idea of the theme that we're going to take a deeper look at other languages and how they can actually help C++ as opposed to this, adversarial, your language is better than my language. And I really appreciated all the speakers had kind of this sharing where they seemed to spend a lot of time hanging out with the C++ people and learning, and we obviously learned a lot from them in the process too. So I think it was great exposure.
Right, and it wasn't like a sales job. I mean, they were willing and quite able to say, this is where our language needs help, or wish we're more like C++ in this area for our language. I mean, that wasn't the main thing, but they were not trying to do a sales job or a snow job, because I think they knew that wasn't going to fly. Right.
Yeah, and I think what I wasn't expecting, I didn't really know, other than Ollie. I didn't really know the background of the other individuals, and so their expertise in C++ was far broader and deeper than I actually had expected. So that was really nice.
Well, I think it's clear that as pioneers in a language, they were very, they had looked at C++ a lot, and figured out what they wanted to emulate and what they could do.
Yeah, I thought this was a very, very good idea to do that, and it's also, I'm not sure if that would work for my conference or CPPCon, but here's exactly the right place to do that, because we have here the high-profile people. There's so much people also already without your keynotes, ongoing discussions about Haskell, other languages, or comparisons. So this is a perfect place to do this.
Yeah. The other thing I should point out, that the fact that Michael was excited about this is significant, because Michael has told me before he doesn't like keynotes in general. He says they just clutter up the schedule, get rid of the keynotes, and let's just have breakout sessions.
So I think that's definitely not true necessarily for all conferences, but I really believe that for this conference. I just don't. I get so much from the people who are here in the breakout sessions and dealing with one-on-one with the attendees are just amazing, and that if I didn't have to listen to a keynote, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to attend the keynotes.
Yeah, but
I
everybody
think,
else is in the keynote.
yes,
That's
I
my
know.
problem.
No, I think that I have the opposite view. I think that keynotes are very important for the conference to pull in new people and to pull in more people, and that's why you need to have at least 2 or 3 keynotes at a conference like this, which goes over 5 days. And I think you had a very fine choice with this year's keynotes about other languages. So one thing I wanted to still to talk about is Michael, you gave a workshop on the TS for networking,
Correct. Yeah.
and also did build a little bit of embedded stuff in there as well.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of fun. So as a company, we host some robotic clubs in different Title I schools around our area, and we have a junior engineering class that shows up at our office every other week. And they heard that I wasn't going to be around, and they're in the process of building their own robots. So they're like 3D printing parts, and they've got the electronics and mechanics. They've got all this kind of figured out by now, and they're 11 and 12-year-old kids, and it's a really bright group. And they were like, "Hey, you should bring some of these robots that we've just built to the conference." And so we actually did that. They were very excited about doing that, and so we brought 4 little robots. They have just Raspberry Pis on the top, and some motor set with a motor controller and whatnot, H-bridge on it. And we put Linux on it, Raspberry, and I got a C++ 17 compiler on it, along with the motor control bits and pieces. And so for the networking workshop, the idea was that you could write the server side on your little robot and compile it right there, and you write the client side on your laptop, and you can control the robots. And then we ended up raffling one off towards the end. So we ended up doing a 3-hour session for the workshop. If you've spent any time at all with the networking TS, it's very large. It goes into executors and a lot of things that are required in order to make networking work properly, but are kind of these big tar pits that we really don't want to get into right now. So executors are described well enough for how networking wants to use them, so we're able to kind of avoid that. But it's a lot of material to cover in a short period of time. And I've spoken about ASIO many times before in the past. Kind of took a very different approach to it this time for the workshop. It seemed like it worked out well. There were a variety of games throughout. So in order to actually get into the drawing, you actually had to write a client that submitted to a server with the correct, bits and pieces with the right responses in order to get your name put into the drawing. So we had a live feed of the pages as people were doing that. I'm sorry if it's hard.
No, it's pretty cool. So yeah, just to the chat, if you have any questions, you can ask anything. And so, John, one thing I still would like you to hear is just to say a little bit about this year's conference. What has it been for you to be here at C++ Now for the last 3 years, and what is like this year's highlights?
Well, the history of the conference is when it first started, I didn't really want to spend an entire week just talking about Boost, so I didn't go. But several of my friends did, and they said, "John, it's not really about Boost. It's a C++ conference. It's just, it's the kind of C++ that you're going to see in really sophisticated libraries." And I said, "Oh, well, sign me up for that." And so, but I was also interested in making it more of a mainstream conference, and so I suggested we change the name to something that's more C++. And also that we expand the conference, and so it's a little bit more of a mainstream conference, but it has very much held that flavor of a conference that's really about kind of cutting-edge, high-end, sophisticated libraries, and the kind of thing that are standards quality. I mean, not every Boost library is going into the standard, but that's the bar that we expect of those libraries, and being around the people who authored those libraries, being around the people who are interested in those techniques for their own maybe libraries in their own companies and stuff like that. It's kind of a rare crowd. I mean, and I've learned a lot and made a lot of great contacts from it. So I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I had yesterday my talk here at the conference, which was about different communities. I've been here for the sixth time now this year, and compared Boost and Qt communities with each other, which was a very interesting way to do that, and I learned a lot through that, and was interesting feedback I got. But also then later, I was sitting in Tony's talk, which was talking on postmodern C++, and this got a little bit triggered, I think, through my talk at CPPCon last year, which had modern C++ in the title, and so I had to do some research on that because I wanted to know what is the history of that or what does it mean. And then later we had the lightning talks, and also these both gentlemen did present their opinion on what modern C++ is. So can we have a short summary of your opinion?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we can start with the wrong opinion.
Sure.
Okay.
Wait, why did you hand that to me then? So, I guess my talk was really, let me lay out what I think the correct use of the word modern C++ is, and I think that it should apply to any code that is C++ 11 or later. I think that there's a huge divide in the community of C++ users between those that are still stuck in a world where they're not using C++ 11 and those that have made the transition to C++ 11. And I think part of that is because once a company has made that transition to C++ 11, they're probably keeping up. I mean, I kind of exaggerate, well, I'm certain I exaggerated, but I said that nobody's actually using C++ 11. There's a huge number of people who haven't upgraded at all, and the ones that upgraded to 11 by now have all upgraded to 14. And it's kind of really divided the community into what I want to call classic C++ and modern C++. Now, the red herring is the modern C++ book, but it's not called modern C++. It's called Modern C++ Design. Andrei Alexandrescu wrote this book, and I think that he wasn't trying to say something about modern C++. I think he was trying to say something about modern design. And I think that the fact that it says modern C++ in the title has caused people to think that you can't refer to C++ 11 as modern because his book came out in, I think, 2002, something like that. Yeah. So
2001.
2001, yeah. So it certainly predates what I would call modern, and he used the word modern. But I don't think he was trying to say modern C++.
So you want to say that this book wasn't modern?
No, I think that his design was modern, and I think it. I mean, it was. I love that book, and it was one of the few C++ books I've ever read where I had to read a few pages and then set it down for a while. I mean, it's really intense stuff, and it was just a whole new way of thinking about C++. It was very modern.
So, what's your opinion, Marco?
Your lightning talk 5 minutes are up, John. So cut you off there. No, actually, so I think I do think you make a really good point about this transition of people who are kind of stuck for one reason or another for the platforms that they're supporting are unable to move to 11 and on. And those people who've moved to 11, a lot of them really have moved on to 14. Part of the John and I have a lot of fun with each other. So part of it was just finding a topic in which we would disagree, whether we agreed or disagreed. But I actually do.
And tweeting smack at each other.
And tweeting smack, yeah. So though people who've had my classes in C++ know that this is kind of one of those things that kind of bothers me. So, I actually believe that whether you're talking about music, there was modern rock, and then there was alternative, or you're talking about art, there was pre-modern, post-modern, there's modern, there's classic, there's these different time frames and eras and techniques, architecture and such, that we put a name on it called modern, even in history. And we don't live in modern history anymore. We say we live in contemporary. So anytime we want to talk about things in history that have time and set, modern often becomes this era or a technique or some attribute of things. And I believe that book described a series of attributes or ways and techniques that we program. And I think we both have taught classes before on modern techniques. So those techniques were the modern techniques. And now if we think about, well, what's the essence of programming today? Well, it's using those things. It's using functional paradigms. It's using a lot of these different things together. And I think the essence of program has changed. Modern is kind of what we did before and what made Boost the boosty thing, back in the day. And now I believe modern, the contemporary programming of today is characterized by some other things, and it'll have a name at some point. I don't know what it is.
It's called Mars.
That's
It's okay for you to be wrong.
that's that's actually a very good point. So I did last year for my talk the research about modern C++, which I think triggered those discussions a little bit. And in my opinion, it's wrong to say that modern C++ starts with C++ 11 because obviously there's the book and Boost has been for a long time modern. And for me, the big question in the meantime is Boost still modern, or has it aged, is it old and not modern anymore?
I'm afraid I don't even want to answer this. So I think Boost satisfies a variety of different audiences. One set of audiences that it satisfies today are those who cannot move into a contemporary compiler, a new compiler of today, and as a result, they need to utilize Boost in order to get that same functionality that they wanted. Some of the libraries that we see being offered today to be reviewed. In fact, Outcome has started today for the review of that. Bring in some functional ideas and concepts, and these things are put together in a way that really aren't the classic way that we used to put libraries together in Boost, right?
Okay.
So I'd say technique-wise, they're starting to reflect some major changes into the way we build libraries. Now, whether you like that or not, that's a different thing. That's why we have a review. You guys should all go out and review Outcome right now.
Okay.
You want it?
I'm done with this.
I mean, it is kind of weird in that from an interface point of view, the libraries, although certainly with more functional things they could be updated, but they're not really antiquated. But the implementation side is very often antiquated because they haven't been rewritten for 11 and 14, and the Boost authors have to be applauded for being able to do the kinds of things they were able to do without using variadic templates and all the cool new tools we have like perfect forwarding and things like that. I mean, theoretically, you before C++ 11, you can't have variadic templates and you can't have perfect forwarding, and yet, guess what? Boost did it, right? And if you look at all the hacks and the incredible effort that they had to go to make that happen, they haven't rewritten it, but you certainly could throw away a lot of lines of code if you could rewrite it. So Boost is in a challenging situation now where it is in a sense burdened by its own success. So many of the things that Boost has done were so successful that they're now part of the standard, and that puts Boost in kind of this redundant situation. So.
Yeah, I think I heard from a lot of other people, but also at my talk, there's a lot of discussion about where Boost should evolve to, and I think there's some potential in Boost left, which we can live and which is there. And yeah, as Michael says, there's different groups which have different interests in Boost, be it the part of being the legacy provider for lots of libraries which are now in the standard and which are not available to many people, which are having projects which just cannot go to C++ 11 or 14. Or the other role of being the cutting edge provider of libraries which aren't yet in the standard and yet have to adhere to a certain quality standard. And I think that's really a good role where Boost has done a very good job in the last years and will continue to do. And so yeah,
I could make a comment.
Oh.
If Robert Ramey was here, he would make the comment that, or point out that when Boost started, the idea of sharing open source peer-to-peer software was a little novel, and it wasn't that easy to actually make that happen. Today, you have a library, you stick it on GitHub, you tweet out the URL, and you're done, right? You're doing that. It was in 1998 when Boost started, those things were very, very hard to do, and so Boost was in a really interesting situation then. Today, it is in a situation where people are saying, what's the value add? And I think the value add is the review process, because it means there's a minimum quality. Because as I said, it's so easy now. You just go out on the Git repository and you put your code up there, and maybe it works on some platforms, and maybe you haven't bothered to test it, and you don't know. And no one, I should say no one, but I mean many people coming to visit your website might not know. Whereas if it's a Boost library, there's a certain minimum level of quality, and it has been peer reviewed, and that makes a difference.
Yes. Um, so one thing I still wanted to talk about is uh, last week I started an outreach to different communities and just generally to everyone who wants to start speaking at our conferences, either here, if you really feel bold, start speaking at C++ Now. Um, and there also now the call for talks are open for meeting C++ and for CPPCon. So I think CPPCon is the end is July 11th.
The deadline. I think that's right.
Yeah,
That sounds
yeah,
right.
and
So we have
um,
a couple of weeks.
it's
something
probably
like
the same thing for my conference as the actual deadline is June 1st, but that's the day when I return to Germany, and I probably will postpone that a little bit. But so far, 20 talks are already submitted, and there's really, really good content coming to Meeting C++ this year. And yeah, I had a lot of fun at C++ Now. And tonight we have a planning session where we're going to see what we're going to do for next year here. Definitely looking forward to coming back here. And I think this is one of the big differences to all other conferences that like more than a third of the attendees or with the speakers probably like more like almost 50% is really part of the community which is coming back here for years. And this is the big difference and makes a very special flair here at the conference that there is kind of a backbone of people which know each other for years, and still we integrate everyone who comes here to be part of C++ Now. Yeah, and that's really, I think, the value of the conference. So I want to thank both of you, John and Michael, for
Thank you for inviting me.
being my guinea pigs and being here live from C++ Now into the world. And I hope we are able to set up a similar thing from CPPCon, maybe a bit more planned. And yeah, so thank you for listening. And with that,
Safe coding. Oops.
Oh.
Wrong shout.
oh, safe coding. Yeah, no, we don't do that.